Yeah, when everything feels so, there's so much despair. How do you not get lost in that?
It's actually a really, really good question, and it has. You could be sorrowful because you're looking for your soul and you can't find it. You know, because there are different things that you and I look for in life. I mean, all of us. I mean, some people look because they're tired of living in a studio. They're looking for a one bedroom. You know, some people, because of their physical life circumstances, that particular life circumstance creates a lot of negative feelings and emotions. So, and if you have those negative emotions because of life circumstances, you are in despair. It is confusing, it is frightening, it is maddening, and it makes you angry and upset and enraged. And you have every right, to feel those things. And you look for a way to kind of, bring peace to your life. There is also those who have had some traumatic pasts. They're not really looking for a soul. They're not looking for answers about, I don't know, things that are perhaps grand in life. They want to figure out how they can put the past behind them and move on. Maybe it's a divorce. Maybe something happened when they were a kid. Who the heck knows? And there are those, who kind of just look at this messy business called life and they're trying to kind of figure out intellectually. That's what they're looking for. And then there are those who don't really who have the privilege of having a relatively good physical life, have the privilege of having a relatively good emotional life. They have no traumas inside them, so there is no past that haunts them the moment they wake up in the morning. And intellectually, they kind of find things to be interesting, but really not so. You know, um, there's nothing bad to go and listen to Jordan Peterson talk. You know, but at the end of the day, intellectually it may be dazzling. He can kind of inspire to ask some questions, to think, to reflect about this and that. At a certain point in your life, you just don't care for those things anymore. You know. And then you get to a certain place in life where you're just looking for something else beyond the intellect, beyond the emotions, beyond the psychology, and beyond the physical stuff. So your question is also being asked not so much by a man but by a woman. I mean, there's a difference, when a man asks that question versus when a woman asks that question. There's also a difference when someone who's 20 asks that question versus someone who's like 45 or 35, because these are different stages that people occupy, and every stage has its own world of questions and desires and ambitions and longings and yearnings. And so when a 20-year-old says, "What is the meaning of my life?" it's very different than when a 35-year-old asks. And I don't mean to presume anything, but I think really it's such a difficult thing sure, it's a difficult thing for everybody, but women are uniquely positioned in life from the age, I think, 24, 25, all the way till about 37, 38, maybe even 40. And the reason is, I think, first, it's hormonal. I mean, their body demands children from them. It's not something that men have. Maybe men want guns. I don't really know what it is that men want. They want power, they want violence. But for women, because of biological reasons, because of psychological reasons, you begin your life at the age of 20, you ask all these difficult questions. But the moment you hit 25, 26, these questions are now sitting side by side to these other questions and longings and wantings, which is, I want to figure out who I am. I want to figure out if there's a God, if I have a soul, what my passions in life are. I want to be like Jesus Christ. At the same time, you say, I'm 25. I want a companion. I want children. I want stability. And then these two things get mixed up. So something inside you says, find a man. Find a good man, a decent man, someone who is mentally and emotionally stable, has a good head on his shoulder. Be roommates with him, marry him, have children with him. And then there is this other side that you've had since the age of 20 to about 24, 25. And all of a sudden, this stuff gets in and says, well, why the heck do I want a man for? Why do I want children for? Am I living through my soul, or am I living through my desires? My physical desires, my psychological desires. And I don't think there is much you can do from the age 25 till about 40. I mean, you may have all these beautiful curiosities, and more power to you, they're great. But you're also dealing with some real facts about womanhood. About the desire for companionship, about your body's desire to lay next to someone, to feel at home, to feel at rest, and the despair that someone may feel if they're like, 30, 35, 37, the despair may not be spiritual at all. It may really have its roots in the fact that, let me kind of change the scenario a little bit. Let's say, I'm approaching 60 soon, and let's just say that my body's falling apart, and it's a fact. It's not really, let's just say. Well, no doubt I'm going to look back in my life and say, well, I was in a relationship for 5 years or 10 years or 15 years with so-and-so. And I let it go for what purpose exactly? Then am I going to do at the age of 60? I don't have the patience to go to a coffee shop. And if there's a woman out there at a coffee shop looking at me, I'm going to throw up. I don't have time or energy to waste to get to know anyone. I have enough stuff on my plate. I don't need the stuff of another human being in my life. At the same time, you say, well, having a companion isn't too bad. We can go to Kaiser together. I'm going to soon have surgery. I wouldn't mind someone making soup for me. And let's just say, because I teach philosophy and I teach religion, all of a sudden I kind of say to myself, well, I am alone. The truth is, because I'm a monk. And I've always enjoyed being a monk. I'm like Jesus Christ. I wasn't made for marriage. It's kind of like sour grapes. You destroy your life with your own hand, and then you say, well, God wanted this for me. And I think that's this may not be a solution to your question, but I think it's good to look at the question Allison, the problem with these conversations is that I don't know why, but they force me to be very honest about a lot of things. And then when I hear myself talk about these things, it makes me feel very uneasy about the things I say. And they may be all wrong. I'm just expressing my own feelings about some of the nonsense that I talk about. Unless you happen to be a very, very, very unique case of a woman at the age of, say, 35 or 34, any woman, I doubt very much a woman's despair at that particular age is spiritual. I think they are rooted in some, difficult facts of life and difficult choices they've made throughout their life. And they kind of come to this dead-end street where they say, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? And you can't but be in despair. And it's not because of spiritual things out there. If you happen to be, again, a woman at the age of 35, 36, 37, and you feel alone, and you happen to also be a professor, and you also happen to be a thinker and a feeler, the truth is you want a companion. But then you look out there, you say, okay, where are the men? Where do I go to find a relatively decent man to talk to? And, you summon up the courage, you take a shower, you put some makeup on, you go out there. Because you want to look for a man. And you go on these dates and you find most of them to be losers. You say, God damn it, he's 45, he's 50. And then your despair doubles in intensity, If someone's despair has to do with the things we just talked about, and it is going to be, a place where a tornado is going to hit almost on a daily basis, there comes a point where you are no longer 35 or 36. You're going to be 45, maybe even 50. And by the time you're 50, one of the nice things about us, it's something that Charles Darwin alluded to. The strongest doesn't survive unless you want to add another component to the strongest, which is the strongest and the most adaptable. And one of the things about us is that we adapt. We get used to almost anything and everything. We get used to abusing ourselves by our own intellects. We allow other people to abuse us. And we kind of live like that for a long, long time. But if any one of us can, survive the storm, what's going to happen if you survive it well? Because despair has to do with separation. Despair has to do with longing and yearning. Despair has to do with questions. And go back to the poem we just kind of made commentary, which is, there is nothing wrong with despair as long as you know what to do with it. And there are days you're just going to be miserable because there isn't much you can do. One of the problems with these stupid YouTube new age gurus that you see on TV, they're always in such a goddamn good mood. They're always happy. They always have answers. They're always trying to inspire the audience. You know, once in a while, I'd like to see Eckhart Tolle coming on TV and saying, life sucks. I mean, you're a human being, man. You're fallible. You know, you're not God if there is such a thing. It's not like you have control over every goddamn thing that's out there. If you really want to inspire the common person, once in a while come out and say that life is tough. You know, I can't always live in the power of now. You know, despair is real. You know, it paralyzes you. Biological factors are real. Social factors are real. Most often we have no power over them. You know, most often we don't have the tools to know what to do with these emotions that come upon us. You know. I was talking to my father today. So I said, so Amir, how you doing? How are the kids? I said, well, kids are fine, Dad. No, I hear something in your voice. Come on, let's go at it, you and I. I said, okay, Dad, what do you want to talk about? They're great, aren't they? What is Dad? Kids, they're great. I said, Dad, you know, a couple of weeks ago I went to Costco. And he says, okay, here we go. I'm ready. Go ahead. Yeah, and I bought a couple of watermelons. I say to him, it's watermelons? It's winter time. It's not in season. I say, yeah, Dad, but I saw watermelon. They were expensive, $8.99, so I just got two. One for myself and one for Malihe. And then I brought them home and I cut them open for the kids, and I realized that they taste awful. So after biting a slice, you know, I threw the whole thing away. And he says, yeah, you have to buy things when they're in season. I mean, watermelon, just wait another couple months. So well, that's the answer to your question. Everything in life has its own season. A season to get married, a season to have children, a season to do this, a season to do that. You know, I remember when Lula was here a few years ago when she had come from Ohio or Idaho or Wisconsin. I would wake up at 3 to go to school, and she would wake up at 3 as well. And then she would go to the gym from 3 to like about 7. Then she would come home exhausted. Then she would kind of just collapse from like, I don't know, 8 or 9 or 10 all the way to like 7 at night, you know. And she would do this. It just wasn't in season. You want to go to the gym? God damn it, wake up at 7. You don't have a job. Wake up at 7 like a normal human being. Eat breakfast, you know, and then go to the gym, punch, swim, whatever it is the hell you want to do. Go there for about 2 hours. Then come home, shower, you know, wash some clothes, you know, wash some dishes, vacuum a little bit. Go for a jog, come home, talk to your sister, make some food. But no, that's not what she did. She was out of season all the time. You know, and I think it's so true when you're trying to do things that are not in season, you know. I mean, look, I'm not talking about things being impossible. All I'm saying is when it's not in season, they become more complicated, you know. More complicated demands that you become a bit more aware, a bit more mindful of the sort of subtleties that may exist, you know. When you're 20, you have so much time to go out there and just do things, stupid things, ridiculous things. You know, what my brother and I talk about these days is how we used to go and just destroy things. You know, they were so much fun. I mean, you know, it's such a great thing to go into Safeway and steal a can of Coke. It's beautiful, man. You're like 15 or 16, you can do that. You just wing it. You just drop out of school, you can do that. It's in season, you know? But when you're like 45 and all of a sudden you say, I'm just going to quit my job. Well, who's going to pay for the rent? You know? Your wings are clipped. You can do it, but it'll just be very complicated, you know? At my age, to be single, and then my desire to have a companion, where do I go? Do I go to a church? Because I can't focus on meeting a woman at a church because the guy giving a sermon, and in my head that has been contaminated by 40 years of thinking about religious ideas, I want to go up there and like punch the preacher in the face. Whatever focus I had about getting together with a woman, that gets destroyed. You know, do I really have the patience to sit in a coffee shop, look at a woman, and they yap on about ridiculous things? You know, the season is gone. You know, the best thing I can do is go to a coffee shop, look at a woman who's relatively attractive and say, listen, I like you. I'm sure you'll like me because you've been looking at my direction. I don't like talking too much. You know, I don't know if you live in a studio, a one bedroom or a house. Just come and, you know, move in with me. I won't bother you, won't bother me. But once in a while we can kind of just sit and have a conversation. We can eat together and watch movies together. And you can have your own bedroom. You know, I just want someone who's living, quacking in the house. That's all I want.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not a pet-friendly guy. I hate pets. You know.
Human.
Because that's the season in which I am. I don't have time to create stories that allows me to become attached to another human being. You know, I am too old and too tired to be pushed around by the emotion of love that creates instability for me. It just wears me out. I can't do it. You know? But I will give you this few lines from Hafiz. Hafiz he's also around, I think, Baba Tahir's time, 12th, 13th century or so. And he's what we call a malamati. He will do whatever he can to make people say negative things about him. So if there is a hint of arrogance, hubris, pride inside him, he'll get destroyed. یوسف گم گشته باز آید به کنعان غم مخور. You know the story of Jacob and Joseph, you know. In Persian poetry and Persian literature, they have such a great position, you know. Joseph is beautiful. He's just beautiful. He is so beautiful that when he was imprisoned by the Pharaoh had a wife. Her name was Zuleika. And her maids told her that you are Pharaoh's wife. Be in love with the Pharaoh, not the guy who lives in prison, Joseph. What's wrong with you? The maids would tell her. She realized that, I mean, it's beautiful, really. She realized that she can't tell these maids anything about how beautiful this man is. It's beyond language. She said the only way these maids will ever understand, first-hand experience. And she gives each of the 12 maids an apple and a very, very sharp knife. And she says to them, when I call the name Joseph, he's going to walk in. The moment he walks in, you start peeling the apple. You say, okay. So Joseph starts walking in this great hall. And these maids look up only for a second to look at whether Joseph is as attractive as Zuleika, the Pharaoh's wife, had stated. All of them find this man so beautiful that they forget that they have a sharp knife in their hand peeling the apple. The moment they become aware, all of their fingers are cut and the apples untouched. Blood is all over the place. You know? And in Sufi poetry, there is so much subtlety in this that all of us in this room, we have a Joseph inside us. We are all looking to perfect our lives, to beautify our lives, both inwardly and outwardly. You want your mind to be sharp. You want your expressions to be articulate, clear, concise. You know, you want your physical life to be beautiful, a beautiful house, a beautiful companion, a beautiful set of children, a beautiful car. You want to walk in the classroom and inspire your students beautifully. You know? And you want to look yourself in the mirror and say, yes, I am beautiful inwardly as well as outwardly. You know? And, you know, it's not like Joseph all of a sudden sprung up from underneath of a rock. He has a father and his name is Jacob. Jacob loses Joseph because his brothers, Joseph's brothers, were so jealous of the love that their father had for this young kid. So they throw him into a well where he screams. This well becomes symbolic of the soul that lives inside you and cries all the time to come out. But no one is there to rescue it. There is no rope that anyone sends down. There are no ladders in this well where the soul can climb up and show its face. So what you have is this poor father named Amir, or Allison, or Lula, or Cassie, or Gening, you know, or Jackie, where this longing, this sorrow, this separation has caused you so much trouble, so much anguish. It has aged you. And on a daily basis you weep, you cry. And what is symbolic about Jacob, the father, and his cries is that he cries so much that he becomes blind. What of the physical world can you see? Can you experience when you can't see? Nothing. The world has nothing to offer you. It means nothing. You're not looking for any beauties in the world. You're looking for the Joseph that lives inside you. And so Hafiz says, Yusuf gum gashte baz ayad be Kan'an gham makhor. Kan'an is like your soul. Okay? Inside your soul lives a Joseph that beautifies your soul, beautifies you, beautifies your life. And Hafiz says, I know you have lost your Joseph. But remember, he will come back. Don't let sorrow consume you. کلبه احزان شود روزی گلستان غم مخور. Kulbe is a hut, like a tiny little house. Okay. Kulbe ahzan, this house of sorrow, sadness, filled with anxiety, frustration, confusion, pain, alienation. روزی کلبه احزان شود روزی گلستان غم مخور. Gulistan means like a rose garden. That this house of yours that is dark and sad, filled with tears and sorrow, will become a rose garden. Do not be so sad. ای دل غم دیده حالت به شود دل بد مکن. Your heart which has tasted great sorrow and grief, it will one day taste joy. Don't give in to sorrow. هان مشو نومید چون واقف نیی از سر غیب. Do not become hopeless because you have no idea what lives behind this curtain, behind this veil filled with mysteries. باشد اندر پرده something غم مخور, that the mystery will eventually unveil itself to you. Do not give in to sorrow. It is such a beautiful and hopeful poem for anyone who has experienced ugliness in life, whether it's physical life or emotional life or psychological life or intellectual life or spiritual life. Because we have it, I mean, look, about 95% of all the emotions we have access to are negative. Only 5% are positive. Literature is filled with negative emotions, suffering and sacrifices. All religious teachings are all about negative. Everything, suffering and sorrow, injustice, cruelty, viciousness, forgetfulness. You know? What Hafiz wants to remind all of us, which is really quite exciting, I think, is that despite what horrifying things you may have experienced, that is or perhaps may have had a hand in paralyzing the way you think, you feel, you know, you make plans about your life, and they're all like just negative, it's because you're Joseph. The thing that used to beautify your life, kind of like Sophia an hour ago, you guys heard her laugh. It wasn't a giggle. It wasn't a smile. It was a belly laughter. It came from her soul. That's the Joseph. Now, as adults, we don't laugh like that. As adults, we express our joy when there is union after a long period of sorrow and separation. And eventually, Hafiz says, in every life there is a Joseph that has been lost. In every life there is a Jacob that has wept for the loss of Joseph so much that they can never see joy in their life anymore. They become blind. But if this Jacob, if this Allison or Lula or Cassie or Genning or Jackie or Amir, if they can only be patient enough, have enough faith, believe that behind this veil there are these mysteries that will reveal themselves. And once they reveal themselves, this house of sorrow will turn into a garden of roses. You know. So when anyone talks about struggle, about despair, about grief, about loss, what they're saying is, you know, I had my innocence, it was taken away. I had my joy, it was taken away. It was stolen from me. Life stole it from me. And what did we do? I mean, look, you drove 3 hours, you know. She worked 10 hours with kids. She had an entire day with her child and husband. She worked 15, 16 hours today. Jackie worked from 6 in the morning until about 7 at night. All of us are here for what purpose? We have all lost a Joseph, the thing that beautifies our inner and outer lives. You know. So there is something that we are aware, and there is something that we long for. And if you can just keep at it, and I think the gospel saying is so true, knock and the door shall be opened unto you, seek and you shall find. You know, and whatever it is you're looking for, you know, if you want misery, if you knock on the right doors, misery will come your way. You know, if you are looking for, you know, things that are a bit more positive, you will knock on those doors. You know, there is a person where I work. He keeps applying for these positions. You know, he lives in Roseville. He doesn't want to commute to Oakland. And every time I talk to him, he says, yeah, I applied 10 places there and 20 places there, you know. I went to the final round. And eventually something's going to open and he's going to just leave Laney for somewhere better and closer to his house, you know. You know, when I was in India, it was such an interesting thing. I think here, you know, it's called poison ivy. Is that what it is? That if your skin touches it, you know, all of a sudden you have all these boils or rashes. It was such an amazing thing in India. So we're playing soccer or we're playing cricket. And as you're walking barefoot, all of a sudden, you know, you feel your skin kind of bubbling up and it stings. You say, oh, okay, you know, poison ivy. Right next to the plant, there is the remedy. You kind of just, you know, bend over, you grab some, and you just rub it on your skin. Your skin turns slightly green for just a couple of seconds. And the rashes just go away. It's as if nothing had happened to you. You know? And I guess the point I'm trying to make is, next to every grief, you know, there is joy. The only problem is, Allison, when there is grief or loss, it's like you have built, it took you 5 years to build this house. And then it burns. And there is grief in that. And you have every right to be sad and angry and pissed off. It is your right. Your joy, on the other hand, is going to be a path of struggle. Because you have to start over. You have to figure things out. And it's a long road. You know, it's not like the rose, the poison ivy and the plant next to it. For us human beings, you know, you get trashed by the poison ivy, but you have to travel 10,000 miles to find its remedy. But it's there, you know. But you have to be very sober-minded, honest. And I think it's kind of like what Baba Tahir said, پسندم آنچه که جانان پسندد. I'm going to accept whatever life gives me. I'm tired of fighting. If life wants to give me sorrow, fine. But to get to that place, you must have gone through lots of different obstacles and hurdles. It's like Gilgamesh. You want to find Uttanapishtim? You got to go through the Twin Mountains. You got to pass by the Scorpion Men. You got to go through, Siduri, the cosmic barmaid. You have to wait for days for Urshanabi to come your way. You have to get on the boat and pass through the waters of death. You have to be tested by King Uttanapishtim. You have to figure out where the plant is. And then ultimately you realize that you had this all along. You had just forgotten, but it took all this journey for you to remember. Just be nice to people. Just be nice to yourself. But to even understand that tiny little thing, you had to fall in love, you had to become very attached, then you had to witness your lover die a miserable death. Then you find yourself in the forest, you're lonely, you're miserable, you want to commit suicide. Then someone tells you there is this person, then you have to be tested. And in the end, what do you find? People are born innocent, they become contaminated, they struggle to find meaning. Why be a burden to people's lives? If you have the power to make them a bit more comfortable, make them more comfortable. And that's really all of our stories. It's yeah. Be like my boss. If you don't want to work at Laney anymore because you're just tired, fill out the applications. Put yourself out there. Go to the interviews. Eventually, one door opens. If someone is happy, we just, working at Home Depot and they're really, really happy, that's good. No one has the right to make them feel miserable. If someone is happy with their husband, their boyfriend, their girlfriend, that's great for them. If they want marriage, good for them. Nothing wrong with that. Not everyone needs to be on this ridiculous quest towards God knows what.